We should be live now.
Hey, welcome everybody.
Yeah, welcome. December is here.
Now it's okay to put your Christmas tree up.
Yeah, I already have one here.
That's all right. It's December now. It's just like half the people on like social networks have been like, "Oh, I put my tree up like mid-November." I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah, this year I think the official day was 29th of November. Sorry. Yeah,
we saw the trees out on the street here. They were like out a week ago, so people were starting this year.
Yeah, it's time flies. It's almost 2020 is over, guys.
Almost. I mean, I hope that 2021's better.
Can't be much worse.
No, that's very true.
But let's remember, we still have a month, for the end of the world. So a lot of things can happen. Cool. So tonight, before we introduce Michael, I'm gonna play a quick video from Nickelodeon, and then we do a proper introduction. Give me 1 second to share the screen. Sure. So, oops. Can you guys see the screen?
Yep.
Cool. Let me see. Just tell me if you hear, because I'm gonna put full screen.
I could hear the audio as well.
I had a problem when I did a full screen before. Nice. I think it's really appropriate for the moment. And cheer up, everyone, as well.
I feel so festive now.
Cool. So, as you guys can imagine, tonight we have Michael. I think I want to bring you for so long because Michael now is SVP Creative Director of Brand Design at Nickelodeon. But before that, Michael used to be founder and creative director of Neogun. I think the young generation don't know Neogun, but you guys still have the website up. We share on the link as well. I think for the old ones like us, everyone remember Neogun. So I think it's really interesting today because we have kind of the two worlds where you work as a studio side and now you on the client side. Let's say we see you as the client side, so it can be a quite interesting chat. So let's start asking what each one drink. I'm not sure what time is in New York. It's 3 p.m. no?
Early, it's 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
3 o'clock. So I went with I figured it was tea time, so my Dunkin' Donuts iced tea.
Cool. What are you drinking, James?
I always have beer, but I'm going to mix it up next time because I'm going to get a more festive drink like eggnog or something like that, or maybe mulled wine because I'm sophisticated in it.
Mulled wine sounds good.
I just got a Polish beer, Teski.
Oh, that's good. As we have a special guest today, I did a nice and it's festive time. I have a glass of wine, some cheese. I have some goat cheese. This is a winner from this year, the best cheddar in UK, and also comes with some blue. So I'm gonna be eating and drinking. It's just
dude, that's a lot of cheese. Are you gonna eat all of that cheese within this conversation?
I'm not gonna answer that question. Let's carry on. Cool, Mike. First, man, thanks so much to come and join us. It's really a pleasure, and have someone that bring a little bit of diversity and knowledge for everyone here as well. And also, like you're more like on the old school when you came with Neogun. So it's quite nice to chat, like what you've been seeing through this year as well, because I think motion design it's still quite a young field.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite difficult. We see anyone then, you know, had a full cycle in the career, so we never know what is next. And it's nice. I think we have a lot to talk today.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. I mean, I'm realizing now that it's almost been 10 years since I closed the company.
Wow.
So it's kind of wild. That's been that long.
Does it feel like that? Does it feel like almost 10 years? Does it feel like only yesterday?
No, a lot of it feels like yesterday in a lot of ways. You know, I mean, I left Nailgun and went to TV Land. I was there for about 5 years, and now I've been at Nick for 5 years. So it's one of those things where you're so busy. You know, there's never been a time to sort of stop and think about it. So yeah, for me, if you would have asked me, I'd have said like 6 years ago. But it's actually 10. So yeah, it's flown by.
Man, this is how aging happens, isn't it? It just kind of creeps up on you and then takes you away.
Yeah, 70-hour work weeks catch up.
10 years is a long time.
Yeah, it really is. And real quickly, before we get anything, I want to give a shout out to Roger. They worked with us on that holiday spot that we just saw, which was shot a year ago, which that also feels like 10 years ago. Give a shout out to my team, you know, Kurt and GC and Erica and all those guys. I mean, the list goes on and on who worked in that project. So it was a really fun collaboration with those guys.
I feel like Christmas time is a great time to be working at a kids TV channel as well. Like, I don't get me wrong, I know you kind of, like the channels, you know, you start working on Christmas stuff like a good 4 months before Christmas or whatever. But, you know, it's just a fun time of year to be at a channel. Like everything, usually pre-COVID, like everything's just happening and everything's just, you know, fun and what have you.
Well, what's also cool about it is for us, we have to by law have bumpers, you know, between the programming and between the commercials. So that's like old school TV. Like people used to do that, you know. Now it's all just sold content. So we still have to do that. So it gives us a lot of chances to do really fun branding pieces, which is what a lot of that was, you know. So we have IDs, we have these bump breaks, which are really nice. So we have to do that. We do it for summer. We do it for Halloween that we just finished up recently. And then we do it for holiday as well, which is great. Kind of gives us the ability to kind of stretch a little bit and push the brand forward.
That's nice. Let me just unpack a little bit, you know, the history here. So when you start Nailgun?
2003. My business partner Eric and I worked for a small company for about 4 years. I think we both were there, and then we left. And we wanted to. He was the guy we were working with at the time. He merged with another company, and we just weren't really in love with the direction that things were going. And so we started working on a business plan, and then you know, had a really rough week at work. 1 week where I probably slept maybe 12 hours over 4 days. And then, you know, we flew to Atlanta, did a pitch, came back to New York, and was expecting to have like a 3-day weekend. And, you know, I was basically told that, you know, see you tomorrow. So Eric and I spoke, and I was just like, you know what, we're out. You know, we sort of left a little bit earlier, and just had to plan together. And, you know, my apartment was big enough that we could sort of kind of roll up in there and get going. And we found an ad rep that would rep us for commercial work, which was kind of key at the time, because a lot of the work that we were doing was commercial as well as entertainment. And then you know, off we went. And then I think within our first client was Nickelodeon. So we helped work on this little small show called SpongeBob SquarePants.
I think I heard of that.
and then blink, and here we are. So right away we worked with Nick, which was really cool. And I would say within about 30 days we were like 5 people, and we brought in Scott Charles and Will and Rosemary was our producer. And we just cranked for about a year at that place, and then we started looking for a bigger space. That's when we moved to Flatiron District in 22nd Street.
So what were you doing previously? Were you working as an animation director kind of thing, or creative director?
So I'm originally from Virginia, and I got into the TV business. I was working for a CBS affiliate down there, and then I moved to New York in '99, and I sent out 10 VHS tapes of my reel. And I sent one of them to MSNBC, which is kind of like the shoe-in. So I was like, I know I could do news. And then I sent 9 to like my favorite 9 studios, and got a couple interviews and took a job, right away when I moved up and kind of got working. And I was hired there as a designer animator, and probably not the best animator in the world, much better designer. And then within like 3 months, became, I was an art director, designer, and then I became like a creative director of the company. And we were just sort of, cranking away. So Eric, my business partner, he was a really great animator / editor. So it just really made sense for us to team up, because after like 4 years at that place, I was directing a lot, and I was also designing a ton. And so he was editing and animation. So we were like, this is perfect. Between two of us, we can knock out a job on different scales. And then when we started the company, we just specifically said, hey, we're a motion graphics company. And then as we started working with people, they'd be like, hey, can you edit this as well? Hey, can you direct this as well? And we started to kind of like branch out, because at that time in the business, it was really about being very, very specific. Because like an ad company would come and they would hire, an offline edit company, a finishing company, a motion graphics company, a special effects company. They would spread the wealth. Nowadays it's all that they try to find one shop to do it all.
It's amazing how it's changed like that. Because I remember back in like kind of early and mid 2000s, you had there like these crazy expensive editing suites, and whereas nowadays it's just like a, like a $5,000 or less Mac Pro or whatever, or iMac, or it'll just do the trick just as good. But I think a lot of it was basically client servicing as opposed to necessity. Yeah,
for sure. And when we started the company, we're in my apartment. It was a nice apartment. We did it, and we sort of, we kind of, fixed it up a little bit. And we were just like, well, we're not going to have clients coming by and sitting sessioning with us, like we hadn't really had the company before. I mean, it hadn't happened in a long time. But of course, like right off the bat, like a month in, we landed this huge, 10-spot campaign with McCann Erickson. And they're like, we're coming down to sit with you, we're like, So, but we were ready.
You can use my bed if you want to nap. It's fine.
Exactly. But it was good. I mean, it was presentable. It worked. And then of course, once we moved to a bigger space, we might have sessioned over the next 8 years probably 4 times.
Sod's law.
Yeah, exactly.
So what? So did you grow up in like rural Virginia?
Yeah, so I grew up in Roanoke, which is southwest in the mountains.
Oh, nice.
And then I went to school at VCU in Richmond, which is a little bit more urban, or a lot more where we were downtown. And then I was in Richmond for about 9 years. Went to school there for only 4, and then the other 5 years I was working.
I did a school exchange. I was lucky enough to do a school exchange a long time ago. We were based in Virginia, in do you know Harrisonburg? Just near. It's not too far from Richmond.
Yeah, a little bit more north, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it really for lovers though? I'm not sure.
It's worked out for me. But yeah, it's a nice place. People are really pleasant there. It's beautiful. You grow up there, you don't really realize just how beautiful the mountains and the trees and everything. And then you move to New York, and then you go back and you're like, oh yeah, it's nice. But it's also very small.
Did influences from your childhood growing up around that region kind of work its way into your work in like some way, shape, or form?
In that area, yeah. I mean, there were some painters, growing up. I mean, I was a little bit lucky when I was in middle school. The high school I was supposed to go to was kind of a rough school. And the year before I went, they made it a magnet school for the arts. So we had half of the magnet school was for the arts, and the other half was technology. So I was going to transfer to play soccer at a different school, and decided not to. And I went to that school to go there for the arts. And so I was there for 3 years, and we got to paint. We had one of the first Macs in the school. I had friends of mine who were on the aeronautical side, and they were actually flying planes by 11th grade, which is kind of bananas when you think about it. So my teacher there, Mr. Ferris, who was the main teacher, he was great. And I think he was somebody that really, kind of was inspirational to me in the sense of, kind of knowing what the arts could be for all of us, and that there were real careers out there. that we weren't just sort of like stuck in being in Roanoke. So that was very helpful. And also, funny enough, was working at a college named Hollins College, which is an all-girls school. And my boss there, Michael Mansfield, who was actually from the UK as well, he was also somebody that kind of like, he was a writer, as well. And so he was somebody that sort of helped me, kind of mentor me along as well, to be like, hey, try these different things. And it's cool to be smart. It's cool to be talented. You don't have to like try to hide that kind of stuff, So it was
I have no problem with hiding that stuff.
And getting a little bit back on Neogen. So you guys start 2003, said. I think you ran until 2011, no? Was something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
About over 8 years for the research I did. So that was a completely different time than nowadays, I started the studio, I think 2010, the studio. I moved to London in 2002. And that time, like internet, as we know, was is completely different, And I'm just thinking.
It wasn't Facebook really. Oh no, 2010 there was.
Or you had Orkut, no, in that time.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, and but like just trying to understand that voice studio, how they affect you guys, because nowadays a lot of the business and finding people, finding talent, and also clients find you, it's all through internet a lot, I know in the US you have a lot more strong relation with reps as well. That helps quite a lot to sell, but it's not everywhere. So how that affect you guys, in the beginning? How did you guys run, to find talents and business and just go about to get your studio name out there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of things. I think landing the commercial rep right off the bat was extremely helpful. Blah blah blah. They're really well known. I think at the time it was like us in New York, and Motion Theory was in LA. They had a lot of really great special effects companies, so that helped. Then we met up with Brett Ashley, who I don't know if you guys know. Brett had a company called the Ashley Agency, and that was like a rep for entertainment work. So we met him because initially my business partner was kind of handling a lot of that, and it's just we were just too busy. We were slammed, and as you're wrapping up a job, you were already into the next job, so it was never really time. We also had a really good publicity firm that repped us, so they would get the work out there, which then sort of turned into some speaking engagements. I spoke a couple of times at Promax BDA, which is really nice, and that kind of got us in front of the entertainment group. I spoke out for many years, I think probably like 7 or 8 straight years at this small conference in Albuquerque called the Motion Conference. And that was really great. I met a lot of really great people.
They're like, guy, we haven't invited you, man. Why do you keep turning up?
What's that?
They're like, hey, we didn't invite you this year. Why do you keep turning up, man?
Yeah, I'm just the guy at the bar the whole time. Just always there.
That's what we do. We're still doing business in the bar, no?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it ran.
But that was a fun thing. I don't know if you saw on the on my Vimeo page the Exquisite Corpse project.
Yeah.
That was really for that conference, and it was a lot of fun.
Can you explain the project just briefly so people don't understand? We can share the link after to everyone as well. It's a quite nice project.
Thanks. So what happened was with that was I just left Nelgon. I was at TV Land and found out very quickly that we had a pretty good staff there. And I brought in some friends of mine that I worked with, Allison and Kay. Really built out the staff, and I just felt like at the time there wasn't a lot of respect for the internal team that we had built up. So I really wanted to do a project where we could sort of show off what we could do. And at that time, so we had this idea about doing an Exquisite Corpse project where each person had 3 to 5 seconds that they could design, animate on their own. And the only thing was they had to connect it to the piece coming before them and the piece coming up after them. And so I think we had maybe like 17, 18 people on that team. And we had about a month to do it. And so we all went out individually and created our own pieces, and I sort of oversaw and directed the whole thing. And then I did the intro piece and the outro piece, which is sort of the bookend that kind of wrapped it up. And it was really fun. And we presented it and showed the process at the Motion Conference. and that was great. And then they sort of asked us to do another one for the following year as like the main piece that introduced the conference. So that one, I went out to just friends of mine, and some vendors who I was, big fans of, and we all teamed up and we did that one. And then I did a third one. I think it was the 10th year of the conference. I did a third one, same situation where I reached out to a bunch of people, and when we kind of coordinated and created this piece. And then that was the opening to the conference. So they were really fun. It was something different, but it was an opportunity to sort of not just do paid work, but to do something that we could all have a little bit of fun. And I think it really opened up a lot of people's eyes of what we could handle in-house versus just going out of house.
It's nice to kind of like flex your creative muscle as well in a way, because don't get me wrong, like doing like in-house projects is great and everything, but like to have freedom, but with a somewhat limitation is quite handy, I think.
Yeah, well, just to do anything without a client sometimes is nice, And I don't know about you guys, but you find yourself like so busy that you don't really find time for your own projects.
No.
So that was really helpful to do that. After the third one, I was definitely done. There are a lot of work. One of the big key takeaways I learned was that designers don't like talking to each other. So especially the third one, I was like, have you talked to the company that's working? No, not yet. Have you talked to? No, haven't yet. And so I'd be the person connecting them and be like, guys, you got to talk and you got to coordinate. And what we did was we created a Tumblr where people could post their progress, and you sort of see the steady stream of work that was coming through. And it helped me to sort of like navigate as the director to be like, hey, that's cool, but somebody else is doing that before you, so maybe you change it this way. And then then along the line somebody would drop out, and then so you would have to connect these two companies and be like, hey, here's where they are. This is their in frames. I know here's where you are. Maybe we can do this. And so it was very collaborative. There was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun doing them. Something that's completely different.
It's kind of funny that the companies or designers aren't talking to each other in a way, because we did. I think Chag was part of it. Like we've done a couple of like exquisite corpse type projects, and we always use them as a really good excuse to get in touch with other companies. Like, hey, how you doing, man? What do you think of this, and all that kind of side of things.
That's exactly how I saw it. It's like, this is a great opportunity for all of us to connect. Because one thing I found as a company owner was, you're always like envious of like, what, who won the pitch, or you're envious like, how's their process different? A friend of mine, Victor Newman, who ran Freestyle Collective for a long time. We used to always talk, it'd be super cool to like just, all of us get together and exchange creative directors for like a month. We all go to different companies and work there.
Like wife swap.
Yeah, like wife swap. Yeah, before wife swap was a thing.
Just put your car keys in there and we'll sort it out later.
Exactly. It'd be cool to do something like that, but obviously you can't. So one of the things when I closed, what I was going to say was that the thing that I always felt was that the New York companies all knew each other, and we were all friendly, obviously competitive, but we were friendly. And I felt like the LA companies, maybe it was the distance, but just didn't feel as open to have conversations and get together for dinner and just talk about the business and all that kind of thing. And we did in New York, which is really cool. And then when I closed Nail Gun and I went to TV Land, one of the first things I did was I just reached out to a bunch of, vendors who I was really, always impressed with. I thought, like my biggest competition. And I reached out and I went and I met, each one of them, at their office, saw the office, had conversations. I was like, man, this is the opportunity to like, at the very least learn a lot. So, and that turned into working with like Transistor Studios, and it turned into working with, at the time, Eyeball, and it turned into working with, Trollback and those folks, by just, starting to have a relationship with them.
It's like one of those things that Chargo's doing at the moment. We have like an innovative called Duna Weevil, and it's about getting well, actually maybe Chargo can explain it better, but it's just studios getting together, talking about the industry.
Yeah, it's more.
I mean, it's more than that.
Private, yeah, it's a private group. It's because even we always did the physical show in London every 2 months, so it's kind of a networking as well for freelance. But you've always look more into the freelance and the staff way, let's say like that. And but no one really is like what you said. No one really sits and talk. It's not like we're just competing. Every studio is friends, so it doesn't feel like connection. So the Do No Evil takes that part. So normally, not because this year mess up a little bit with COVID, but normally we go every 2 months for like a business lunch. We spend like 2 hours we bring someone like lawyer side, or we had like animation to talk about more general equal in the industry, how we can help as studio owners, how can we help, between us, and also how can we make the community better for people to work. But it's kind of a private thing, but I think it helps as well. And I think people forget about that, but people end up being friends.
It's a community as well, isn't it?
It's a community, and it's not because you pitch in the same job means, the two companies can't be friends. Each one pitching a different way, and it's all about the idea and how you present the idea. But how you run your business, everyone can help each other.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my mentality is always that there's enough work to go around. So it's to sort of to be able to sit down with people who are like-minded and understand. Sometimes it's just refreshing to just go in and say, hey, these are things we're dealing with, and they're like, oh my gosh, like that's what we're dealing with too.
Yeah.
That's what, and sometimes it's a bitching session and you're getting it all out. But other times it's like, like you hear like, oh, we handled like this, and it's super helpful. It's super helpful to have somebody else just to feel that same sort of vibe that.
And if someone understand the same problem you have, it's different than I go and talk to my wife about the problem. It's just another problem, But when you're talking to another business owner that has the same pressure, the same problem you have, and I think that helps quite a lot. It makes a lot more easy, to get that out.
Yeah, because I mean, basically, it's a second family.
Yeah.
Well, it's like sometimes you like your family, sometimes not so much. And so it's not as good, sort of good to talk. But
yeah, of course.
I think you were asking earlier about finding talent. I think the other way too was I taught at Parsons, aka the New School, for about 18 years as well. So that was a lot of work, but a lot of fun, and we're able to sort of like bring in some younger talent, that right away that they were taught the right way because you were the one that taught them, So that was we had a lot of people from there as well. So that was another way, because I mean I don't know about the UK, but New York, it's hard to find talent. It's hard to find talent. There's a lot of companies out there, and freelancers are expensive and hard to get, and so you have to be able to sort of develop your own talent and have that nice mix of senior people, so that way
it gets quite tricky as well. Like if you're good at what you do, then you just get booked up, and and you can only, I find it tricky from a freelance perspective as well. Like it's difficult. You can only turn down companies so many times before they'll stop getting in touch with you as well. It's like, oh yeah, they'll be busy. It's such a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's very, very hard. We always, I mean, I think we ran at about 22 people was sort of like our max for the space that we had. And I would say of those people, 12 were full-time, and the rest, probably the other 6 or 8 were like permalance, who just were always there. And then we had about 3 specialists that would kind of bounce in and out depending upon the job. We need a liquids person, we need a a particle person, or a ZBrush, or whatever it was. We another producer for a live action shoot coming up, that kind of thing.
Seems like quite a good balance, actually.
Yeah,
I think
it worked well. I mean, the problem was that we just outgrew our space almost in the first year, so we were kind of wedged in there for a long time. And then we, after 2008, when everything crashed, financially, we were still doing fine, and we tried to at that point get into another lease, because our lease was running up, and nobody wanted to get into a below market lease. So we were finding like we could either go up twice the size in space and go up 3 times the cost, or stay where we are and just remain small and just be even pickier with the jobs that we take.
You could hire smaller people and just have better density. Just thinking. Sorry, Tiger.
No, go ahead.
We were talking earlier about reps and that kind of side of things. Do you find reps still, especially now that you've got like a different perspective, you guys are doing the commissioning side of things, but do you find are reps still relevant nowadays when you have much more access to promoting yourself to to potentially to a large audience with, social media being much more of a thing now than it was back 10 years ago?
It's a good question, because I have a couple that reach out to me a lot, and it's helpful because they put they put people in front of me. So I think without knowing where the numbers are nowadays, because the numbers are probably a little bit different in terms of the percentages you give up. I think it really comes down to yourself. I mean, I think there are a lot of artists who just, don't have the ability to be outgoing and to make that sort of connection and the cold call and everything. And so if I was them, I would definitely make sure that there's somebody out there banging that drum.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're somebody who's more of a personality and a little more hands off on a day-to-day work, then maybe not needed, but I was always of the mindset that like the work sort of speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The reality of it is it's not, because so many people call and ask for something and go ahead.
Yeah. Do you feel, because I always think reps still have I think we're in a transition, the power the rep has, like comparing the past, because there is what you're talking about, like the outgoing, contact to people. If you're someone more outgoing, it's easy for, you get new clients. If you're really shy and you're not really good as that, it's make a lot more difficult. The rep can help, but it's still, I think, clients still have the mentality, like special. I think broadcast, the networks is a little bit different, but I think like Asians, advertisement agents, they still have, the rep still have their connections, like their old school connection that they come off. They trust the rep, even if they don't know the studio, but they know, because in the end of the day, it's about Thiago and Michael. It's not about Nickelodeon and Cookie. It's the relationship.
It's the trust, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the trust. It's if you know me and you trust me, and we have the conversation is different. And I think the rep still have that kind of power, no?
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for the ad side because I've been so removed from that, but I think that's true. I mean, at the end of the day, they had the list, right? They had they had the catalog, and for me, as somebody that's was very hands-on with the company, like I just had to sort of when you start a company, you have like 8 hats that you have to wear because you're the owner, and so to me, like that thing is like one less hat that I'd have to wear. So it was very helpful, and you're right. Like sometimes they can just reach out and get that call, and I mean, even with like Outlook nowadays, I mean, I use Outlook for my email. I have the focus tab and I have the the other inbox tab. I almost never look into the other tab, like it just the computer, Outlook's saying like, yeah, no, this is not important to you. So I could have, somebody could have my email and they could be sending me stuff all the time just as a cold call or like a spam to try to break the ice. And some come through and a lot of them don't, so, but if somebody's reaching out and reaching out to me and they're on my list, they come through, or they call me, or they see me at ProMax, or they see me at another speaking engagement, and then they start that dialogue, so I still think it's important. I mean, I think at the end of the day, when we were working on the business plan, we met with this guy who ran, he had a bunch of car dealerships, like these big car dealerships. He was retired, and so he was just kind of looking over our plan, kind of giving us some notes. And his initial question is like, who's the rainmaker? Who's the person who's bringing in the work? Oh, Eric's going to do it. And we built up a catalog of people that we can reach out to. And he's like, but you're not a salesperson. I'm like, no, I know, but we have this work, and we're lucky because we have this reel to show people. And at the end of the day, like that's helpful. But like, I didn't want to do that. I don't want to do that 5 days a week. So it was better to have somebody else who's passionate and great and can kind of get that, that conversation started.
It's somewhat ironic as well. Like, obviously we all work in advertising, but we're not necessarily a salesperson, even though we're just selling other people's products for a living in a way, or selling something for a living.
Selling your stuff is the hardest thing in the world to do,
Yeah, I think it's funny you say that, James. Like, we're not a salesperson, but in the end of the day, we're always selling.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're pitching idea, you need to sell the idea, even inside the company. Like even if you have a business partner, you need to sell to him your idea. So we constantly, I think we just don't like the term sales.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I hate the term, but it's also just, it's just one. I mean, for me, like one of the reasons why I left Nailgun, closed Nailgun, was that I was tired of working 70-hour work weeks. And it's like, if those 70 hours is 5 hours of me reaching out to past clients and checking in and that kind of thing, wasn't my strength, you know. So I'd love to go out to have lunches with them and have this conversation. It was cool, but you know, I was always the whole time spending time worried about what was happening back at the office, you know. So it was just, you know, it was just to try to alleviate, you know, some pressure, you know.
I know how hard was for you to get in the decision, you know, you're tired of that, you know, you need to move on. But when you have your own studio, it's still kind of your baby as well, no? How hard was that time, you know, for you get to that decision and think, oh, I'm doing the right thing, you know?
It was extremely hard. And I'll tell you, it was crazy because the year before, and we were on track for that year, it was our 2 best years as a company. And what I found was that I always try to be a bit strategic about what we do. And what I found was that through the years, the ad work was always, in the beginning, was 50% of the work, and entertainment was 50%. But the ad work paid for a lot more than 50% because their budgets were way better. Slowly, the ad work just got smaller and smaller and smaller. And as we were like getting older as a brand, you know, we were now kind of like, people were looking at us like, okay, well, we can only take a project to them for X amount of dollars. So it was just harder and harder to get that work to try to, you know, compete in that space. And we were doing so well in entertainment. So with that being said, what happened was that we started working with ESPN, and it was great. And one of the successes of Nailgun was that we had tons of repeat business. Like, it was very rare somebody worked with us, never came back. You know, like I was listening to a podcast the other day with Danny Myers, who started Shake Shack, and he was talking about initially starting, like, everybody has a burger, but like, it was how they treated the customers, and it was the experience, you know, because he's had all these big, you know, 5-star restaurants that he's run. And that was kind of what it was for us. It was about, you know, treating the client, you know, the best way we could, delivering the best work, you know, surprising them, you know, creating, you know, crazy good value. So by the end, the ESPN jobs kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We were working on the whole promo campaign for college football. We were working on all the promos for the Grand Slam tennis tournaments. We were doing Little League World Series. We were doing their new show E60. So I started to realize that, like, we were like 60-70% of our work was ESPN. And I was really scared at some point that they walked away, we were back to starting from ground zero, you know. And I learned very early on that you got to make sure you're diversified with your work. So that was a little bit scary. But really, that year was just, we were so busy, and we were just tired, and we were just running into the situation of, like, if we had $1 million in accounts receivable coming in from ESPN and other companies, we'd have $30,000 in the bank. Payroll was $50,000 every 2 weeks. So we were finding these spots where we were, like, you know, accounts receivable rich, but we were, you know, we were cash poor, and we didn't have this big company behind us that was, like, you know, just like loaning us money to cover it. So we both were just getting tired, and it had been almost 9 years. And one Monday, Eric and I both came in, and we had a little Monday meeting, and we just had a conversation about, hey, what are we doing? You know, what are we doing now? So that turned into 2 companies trying to buy us, but they were taking their time. Turned into Kim from Rosenblum from TV Land talking to me about a job at TV Land, and it just seemed like a good opportunity at the right time, you know. So wasn't totally looking to make the change, but it seemed like the right transition to do it. And I didn't want to wait for much longer for the 2 companies that we were talking to about buying the company to do it. Plus, I didn't really want to work for somebody else, especially with that team and with what we were doing. I wanted to try something new, and I really just wanted to focus on doing work, not focusing on where the work was coming from, begging to get paid after you kill yourself to do the job. You know, so all that was stuff that I was just like, I just can't, I don't have the stomach for it anymore. So
actually, I just thought it was quite difficult to sell a studio as well, because a lot of the studio is the people who found it, it's their personalities. And, you know, once you've been bought someone after your contract runs out for like 5 years or whatever, you know, it's a different kind of studio without the people who founded it in it as well.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that, because what happened was one of the clients one of the companies was a big company. We had a lot of the same clients, and they were on the West Coast, so it made perfect sense. And then, you know, they were really close. We were really close to those guys, and I had to make the decision on TV Land. The other company was trying to branch out onto the East Coast, and we went through financials, everything was good, and at the last minute they got cold feet. But when I took the job at TV Land, I went back to the company and said, look, here's the perfect scenario. I exit, you guys bring in one of your creative directors from the West Coast. So now you have this great team. We have the same clients. You have your person running it. It's perfect. And they're like, nah, we're good. Like you're leaving, we're never good. So it went away. But I tried. I tried to put the salesperson hat on one last time and it didn't work.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I really feel, like the pain, like just running studio is fun, but the pressure is immense, and sometimes it's like what you're saying, just concentrate in the work. I think a lot of people start a studio think that, I'm gonna run a studio, I'm gonna just direct whatever I want, and suddenly, you need to pay the bill, you have the stuff, you got massive family behind you, and you need to pay the bill, and we forget about that, and then you end up just juggling around. I need direct now, I need to find a freelance now, and it's just like all at the same time, and the pressure it's like a pressure pen, just.
It's like the idea of running a studio is very much an idealism, because you don't see the amount of work that goes in behind it. It's like seeing the tip of the iceberg as opposed to the rest of it.
Every time I speak at a school, one of the first questions almost every single time from one of the students is like, how do I start my own company? And I'm like, wrong question. Like no questions are bad except for that one. Because you got so many other things to worry about before. It's like, learn on somebody else's dime. Don't try to learn on your own dime. It doesn't make any sense.
I think I had a similar conversation with Thiago used to teach some students as well, and one of them is they didn't want to start a studio, but they wanted to go straight from finishing Thiago's course into freelance. And I was like, no. Get a full-time job first, learn on somebody else's, like you say, someone else's dime, and build up your connections. Make sure you know how to work in a studio environment, because it's vastly different from like university or what have you. And they're like, no, I'm just going to go straight to freelance because money. I was like, burn so many bridges.
You just burn bridges, because first they don't know how to work with a team. They don't know how to work in a bigger project. But
it's delivering files for a deadline as well, man. That's like the basic.
Well, you get out and I always tell people, like you learn more in first 6 months of working than you do in 4 years of school. And this is taught in college.
And I think it's the same opening like a studio, no? Like opening a studio without working in any studio, understand how a studio run. It just make really hard.
And sometimes working for a bad studio is even better, because then you learn like what not to do.
It's true. It's true.
You learn a little bit of what to do, and you learn like definitely don't do this. And that was helpful for us for sure.
That's
but that stress thing is it's a killer. I mean, that last year I definitely, with the stress of the company, my ex-wife was sick, a lot that year. I got a little bit of, I got a little sick. It was a crazy sort of year, and I started like, my hand was like really sore, and I couldn't really figure out, like what was going on. And until like one night I woke up in the middle of the night, and my hands woke me up because my hands had gone numb. So I was squeezing them so tight, sleeping so hard, and they had gone numb, and so I had to wake up and to move around, get circulation back. And that's when I was like, man, this stress is getting too much. It's getting too much to sort of handle. So that's when I was like, it's definitely time for a lifestyle change.
And this is something a lot of people don't talk, like the stress, or the mental health as well behind, like we had a conversation with Mike from Men's vs. Machine as well. I think he had a year off, because he had a really serious mental problem with all the stress and everything, running the studio in London, LA.
And himself out.
Yeah, I think people don't realize, I think it's always when we're looking to open a studio, it's like, we just see the bright side, I'm going to direct my job, the people is making more money than me. And it's always, but no one really realized the amount of work goes behind that,
It's a crazy amount. I mean, like I wanted to have a studio since I was like 7 years old. Like I knew I wanted to be a graphic designer. I didn't know what graphic designer really was. I didn't want to be an artist. I wanted to have my own studio, whatever that was. So like I got there, but like, it's crazy. I mean, one of the things I always tell this story was that near the end, we were so busy. Like I used to be creative director by day, and then most everybody would go home at 6, and then I would stick around after dinner, and then I would design at night, because I just didn't want to give up on the design. And I'd also sort of see where we were, like who's doing the crazy thing, who's doing what the client wants. Like we need something kind of in between those things. I'll jump in on that direction. And I would stay till midnight, 1 o'clock, and bang out that stuff and then go home. then got to the point where we were just so busy and there's so many different jobs. There's always somebody there at night, till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. So I would be creative director from like 10, 9 o'clock in the morning till 10 at night. And then, 11, I'd sit down and, work till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, just be, not productive, not great. So I started doing this thing where I was like, once a week, I would creative director by day, stick around till like 7 or 8 o'clock, roll out, 9 o'clock, go home, have dinner, see the wife, go to bed around like 11 midnight. Then I'd get up at 3:30, shower, be in the office by a little bit after 4. And then from like 4 to like 8, I had like these 4 hours that I was awake, ready to go, no interruptions before Eric and the rest of the team came in. And then I just, over months, I was like, that's just not, like, having that one weird day would just throw me out of whack. So I was like, that's not good either. So you try to find these ways to do it. And it just near the end, I was like, I'm kind of running out of ideas on how to be efficient, so.
Yeah. I think that's I think always the trick, You're always trying to think how to be efficient as possible, so your time, you can condense and do more things in a day.
So have you found that since joining TV Land and now Nickelodeon, has it worked out how you thought it would work out in terms of having more time for yourself and all that kind of side of things, like less stress as well?
And also concentrate more in the work, no?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, it's a lot less stress, and a lot of people in the office are stressing because it's just crazy deadlines and it gets tighter and tighter. But at the end of the day, I know that, like, I'm not on the hook for any of this money, so I'm good, but no, I mean, I'm kind of partly joking, but no, I mean, there's definitely stress. It's different stress. I still, up until COVID, was still finding a way to work like 50, 60 hours a week, because I was shooting in LA or wherever it would be, at least once a month. That's why I quit teaching. I wasn't around enough to be consistent with it. So I would travel out and work, shoot over a weekend, fly back on Sunday night, be at work in the office on Monday. So I was still kind of doing a lot, but it wasn't as much, as when I had Nail Gun. So that part of it has been better. And it's also like, there's something really nice about, having, I have a large team at Nick. I took over Nick Jr. about a month before COVID. So I have Nickelodeon, Nick Jr., Nick at Night, all the Nicks in terms of
all the Nicks.
All the Nicks. So it's cool now. It's a great team. So I think we have about 120 people with freelancers and everything in total on the team. So we have a pretty big team, amazing team. We've done a really good job of recruiting and keeping talent and getting more talent. So that's been helpful. It's been really inspiring to work with some of the, the best people in the business, especially for a team that's on the network side, which usually doesn't have the strongest creative. Mm-hmm. It feels pretty damn good to have a team in there that brings, ProMax award-winning work. We win quite a bit of awards, and it's usually the passion and the work people put into it. So that part's been really, really great.
We used to, both Thiago and I used to work quite a lot at Nick in the UK, and it definitely seems like there's a like a Nickelodeon kind of person, but in a good way. They're always, everyone seems enthusiastic about everything, and that's what that's what made like a really fun place to work as well, because you had that energy.
I think Nickelodeon was the first place in my whole life. I think it was the 10 years of SpongeBob. About, I don't know, I think I was responsible of the campaign in UK, and it was a lot of work. And one night, I think I stayed until 2 a.m, and the security come to me and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I've got something to deliver in the end of the week." And he, no, you need to leave. I said, "No, I need to stay." And because I was freelance, next morning, the manager came to me and said, "Oh, what did you do last night?" I said, "I just stayed until late. I need to finish the job." She said, "Nah." The HR came to me and said, "You can't do that. You can't be in the building work that long hours." I said, "I need to deliver." She said, "I don't care. We changed the date, but you can't stay working that many hours." I said, "Wow, I never heard that my whole life."
They just didn't want you around, man. That's what it was.
Yeah, this guy is sketchy.
Bad smell.
All the tattoos.
I think it was the first time I heard that in my whole life. Well, what was always really chill here, you know, like really, really good vibe. It's not as big as you guys in New York, but you know, I think Nick UK.
They're a good team, good atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about the brand that's just very fun. You know, I mean, our whole brand statement is like, you know, it's fun, surprising, you know, authentic, and I think people live that. I think, you know, I think a lot of people come work there because they grew up on the brand, and so they're very passionate about it. So you have like the younger team that sort of grew up, you know, knit kids, and then you have a lot of people who have families, you know, that are there that, you know, because, you know, the work-life balance, you know, was good. You know, I mean, I think right now we're sort of struggling with that, like everybody is. But you know, it was a good sort of rhythm to it, and you know, SpongeBob's the most optimistic person in the world, and somehow it's rubbed off on all of us, I think.
I didn't choose the SpongeBob life. The SpongeBob life chose me.
Yeah. John Kutlu, sorry if I pronounce it wrong. He asked
if say big hello to Mark Colran as well. Says hello.
What's up, Mark?
Manchester's finest.
Yeah.
So John asked you, do you have any no-nick creator outlets outside of the cabin?
Outside the cabin. Behind the scenes knowledge. Are you okay?
He's dying.
We're losing one.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, you know, like right now I'm building a house, you know, and that's been a nice creative outlet. I think, you know, snowboarding is definitely one. Snowboarding is one I love to get out and ride. I mean, as a, you know, as an adult that's still like a 14-year-old skater kid, you know, I still skate around a bit. I'm actually got a little bit of a shoulder injury from it. You know, I sort of get that out of my system, you know, in the wintertime, snowboarding, you know, sort of hiking a lot this year. And photography, really, I just, you know, been really, like, I've always sort of liked photography. I never, you know, sort of loved it. And then this year I invested in some better equipment, learned how to fly a drone, shoot a drone, you know, kind of been getting back into, I was never really an editor. I mean, I had Eric that did all my editing, so I never really edited, you know, myself. And so I've been doing that a lot this year on some things. So yeah, definitely been trying to find, you know, more time to you know, do some fun things for myself. Plus, you know, traveling has always been a big passion of mine, to be able to, you know, as a kid who flew for the first time at, you know, 8th grade and thought that was going to be it, you know, to be like in a plane every 3 or 4 weeks was something I wasn't expecting. You know,
I have to say that one of the kind of one of the small silver linings of COVID is that I think a lot of people have found a little bit more time to just to indulge in their passions, be it like photography or you know, or like learning how to edit and what have you. It's one of the small slivers of a silver lining.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if not, you go crazy.
And how do you see yourself now? Like after, it's quite a big change, you know, because come from Neogan, have your own studio, and now you're working, let's say, the opposite side. You know, I assume that helped you quite a lot having your own studio and have contacts and understand how studios run, to, you know, to be able to direct and produce the work at Nickelodeon nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, so helpful. I mean, I was always surprised working with clients of like how little they knew about the process. You know, and that was always sort of, as an owner, it was very frustrating because you felt like a lot to sort of train the client as to what, you know, what's going on. So even coming to Nick, I mean, I think there was some of that, but I think you know, the group that was a little bit more knowledgeable than I think most clients I'd had in the past, so that was helpful. But you know, I think also too, just having that in-house team and being able to say, you know what, we don't need to go to house for this. Like, you know, let's save that money and put that into something else that's going to be bigger, and let's accomplish this. And also to be able to, you know, work with my VPs and kind of, you know, throw in, you know, some ideas of how we might be able to produce things. I mean, for me, it was always very important to learn the technology side of things as well. So maybe not knowing it to every single detail, but knowing enough to be able to be helpful, not just to like, hey, do this or try this when it's impossible to do it, you know, in that amount of time. So I think I learned a lot of that, but I think the biggest thing for me right now, I think, is just being able to be creative with the money, because as we all know, the business just keeps getting less and less each year, and there are cutbacks, and those cutbacks could be layoffs, but cutbacks could be budget. So it's being able to work, you know, faster, smarter, and cheaper. And we know that that golden triangle doesn't really exist, that one of the things have to give. But we're always trying to be creative about how we do a project. Also trying to be fair with you guys and vendors to not put you guys in a situation where you can't succeed, whether it's based off the budget or based off the timing. I think you were saying, James was saying earlier that we started on holiday really early. Normally we would start on holiday in like May.
Wow.
That's a big project. So a couple years ago when we did this sort of like, we worked with Nathan Love and did this sort of Rankin Bass meets Nickelodeon. We initially wanted to do that all stop motion, and we were like too late. It's just too late to get it done in that time. Pieces. So we went and did it 3D. But even then, we were up against it, to get it done in time for for Thanksgiving. So I think those things, I think a lot of creatives, will get overwhelmed and they'll push things and say, well, we'll start on later. And my team would vouch this. I don't do that. I'm 100% like, this is the schedule. We have to get going on it. We can't put ourselves in that situation because, especially on the network side, the edits have to come in, this has to come in. So we're like, not last on the totem pole, but we're pretty low. So if we're not keeping up, then, we become the problem. So I think we've been pretty good about that and being able to react to things that just happen very quickly, come in very quickly, have to get turned around very quickly, being nimble, super helpful.
Yeah, I think because for us coming, that is what you said, a lot of clients don't really understand the other side of the game, don't understand the process more than, and that makes a lot complicated when you're trying, especially if you have a small budget, you need to be really efficient, and you want to throw ideas, and the clients don't really understand the process, and they're supposed to approve things on that stage, and that they get to that stage, start asking back, and and that just came budget. You just start burning out all the budget, and you can't get the same good project, or you just spend all the budgets, to make the client happy. But it's good to, when the client understand a little, the process goes there, because it's more like, I think, the same level conversation as well, and I think you just get the best out of the project.
Yeah, it's also, I've had many conversations just on the side of like, hey, we can't do it for this budget, but here's what we can do. It becomes a dialogue versus two numbers people who are trying to like wedge a square peg in a round hole, and you don't get anywhere. And what inevitably happens in that situation is now those two people have taken 2 weeks of time, trying to make something work or fighting over numbers or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden that's 2 weeks of production that we lost, so I'll jump in sometimes early on to try to figure out a solve, that's not just, a schedule or, a budget issue.
I always think that as well. Like, I think everything's a conversation where if someone comes at you with an unrealistic budget, say, all right, we can't match this budget, but here's a solution that does fit your budget and time frame. It's always good to come back with some kind of solution, I think.
Well, a perfect example, we just did, Halloween, and we got started really late. And normally we'd go out, to a vendor, and we'd collaborate with a vendor because we had, more money, and maybe the team was a little bit overwhelmed with other work, and we didn't have the money. And so we were able to sort of like, kind of group up our team to the side, and GC and Kurt reached out to two artists who work internationally to help us. So it was those two artists working with our team. They were designing some of the characters, doing some of the, the modeling. And then they worked with us, and we did all the rigging, the animation, and texturing, and it was a little bit of back and forth. But that was our solve to get around it. We couldn't afford a company. We couldn't have called you guys and be like, hey, can you do this for this amount of money? But for two people who are independent and working on very specific things, that was what we needed, in that situation. So like, and that's to me, that's like the, that's the vendor side, because, at Nailgun, we'd be like, okay, well, we need this one thing. I need this, just a little bit of cell animation. Okay, I had this person, let me call them, see if they're available, they can work on this. And you start putting all the little pieces together versus that it's one big job that you have to solve. You're solving a smaller thing, and combining that with what, with the assets that you have in-house. And so we've been doing more and more of that as well.
Yeah, I think that pragmatism is just key to success. But, so how do you guys go finding talent nowadays? Like, if somebody was looking to work with you guys, what's the best way? Because do you just find people on like social media, like Instagram and what have you, and just come across people
Yeah, people hit us
by
up on
chance?
Yes, people hit us up on Instagram. I think a lot of times, because of the size of the staff, like friends of friends, will kind of reach out. I think we have such a fun working environment and such a great team that, once again, the same way at Nailgun where we have repeat business, we have repeat people that work with us, want to come back, and so they're always kind of reaching back out to us. We had a VP on the graphics management side, Diana Chu, who worked very closely with me to work with schools to connect. So there's like 3 different schools that we connect with. We go and we visit, do like a talk, meet with students. They would be, possible interns with us. And then those interns hopefully over time, become freelance or staff. That's another way that we sort of, be able to bring talent in. And a lot of talent, has just been with us for a while because it's just, it's such a fun place to work and it's solid. So we really haven't needed to bring a ton of people in, but right now we have a couple positions that we're interviewing for. And I think because of COVID and everything going on, I've never had more people within the company or friends of mine reach out and say, hey, can you meet with this person? Can you meet with that person? So it's been kind of nice because, I'm used to the days of where you're fighting over freelancers with 5 other companies. And, the only way you can get them is by you guys all bidding against each other. It's the point that it just doesn't make sense to even bring them on because they're too expensive.
It sounds like education seems quite close to your heart as well. Like, you're teaching for a long time, and then you're just saying through teaching to find other people as well. Is that just? It's always quite nice to give back to the community and all that side of things.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of giving back for sure. It's funny because I really didn't enjoy the college experience. Partly because I didn't have the money to just have the great college experience. I was
it is crazy expensive in America. It's just nuts money.
Working 2 jobs, working around the clock. So I didn't really have the best experience, and I couldn't wait to get out. And somehow I sort of ended up back in with teaching. And it's been really rewarding, and you get to sort of see people who are excited about learning stuff and for all the stuff that you get them from experience and the education part of it, you get so much back from them emotionally as well. Seeing them kind of take those steps and and seeing them develop and the excitement. It's really a lot of fun, and the talent just keeps getting better and better and better. It's just bananas now. Like how many students coming out who are just so ridiculously good. That. And they're nowhere near at the speed level that a professional is, but they'll get there. So it's you kind of want to have. I'm kind of a sports guy too, and both my teams are they don't have a lot of money. They're not like the big market teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's always you bring in a couple veterans. You bring in some young players, and you have that nice rhythm. Where it it's like they're teaching the young ones, and then it's just like this nice little circle that kind of happens.
When you're teaching, can you spot who are going to be the talented people from the start? Because there's a really good animator called Bob Godfrey who did Rhubarb and Custard animation among other things. But he used to do a lot of teaching at RCA, and I think he said you can spot the talented ones because those are the ones that don't listen.
That's a good call. It's a balance for me because I will also say that a lot of times the most talented are the ones I'm not interested in, and for a couple of reasons. One is I've sort of found they're the ones who usually don't have the best work ethic,
Mm-hmm.
And they're usually not the best collaborators. And so whether it's Nailgun or Nickelodeon, we collaborate a lot. There's never a job where it was this person does it. So for me, it's about the personality and the work ethic that's just as important about the talent. And if I feel like there's somebody who's a little bit lower in talent, that talent will come, especially with the right training. But if they come in and they're just amazing around the box, I usually a little bit weary of those folks.
There's definitely around mid 2000 there used to be a notion of a rock star designer. They get posted on various websites and they'd have an ego. I just found that whole notion, considering what we do for a livelihood, just ridiculous.
I have so many stories of people coming out of college and they're negotiating with 5 different companies to try to figure what the best costs and Nailgun, we just didn't have that kind of money, so I would tap out, and then all of a sudden guaranteed a year or so later they come back around hey, how's it going, you guys need any help? And it's no, we good. We good. So it's like, and I always tell my students, I'm always like, look, if they're offering you way more money than you thought, like steer clear of it, because there's a reason why they're doing it.
Yeah, there's always a reason.
In there and the work is garbage, but you can't leave because you get used to that money. So it's always about trying to get to the place where you're going to learn the most, being in the best environment, people are collaborative. Because when I came up to New York, people would sit at their monitors and they would just be like, covering up, not letting you see how they, did what they did. And it was just, everybody was protective of each other. It was that competitive. It was crazy.
That's nuts.
And that's just, I don't like that environment at all.
And you coming out to college, what you want to mainly is to get experience,
That's it.
You don't want to be rich on your first year,
To be fair, you wouldn't say no.
Yeah,
I would have taken it. But yeah, I think, like I said, it's really about experience. And, I would say, it's a joke, you work that 50, 60 hour, 70-hour work week, and so by the time you're 20 years into the business, you're really like, 30 years into the business, in terms of experience. And, so I think that to me was something that I realized very early on. I was like, oh, I'm not, the same as any other 30-year-old out there. I'm not the same as any other 40-year-old, that level of experience goes a long way. But I was lucky to be in a couple really great places that would teach you, and if you're not learning there, then you're learning on your own. And now it's all so easy now because it's all out there. I learned After Effects 3.1, and there was nothing online telling you how to do it. That's for sure. You're just digging around and moving things around, and
that's the big difference.
The best
nowadays.
time as well, no? Because we used to put a render and takes like 2 hours to watch a preview, and we used to have a long lunch.
I'll just pop over to New York.
Exactly.
Oh, it's 3D. I go to LA.
3D. I remember like messing around with cinema back in the day, and that was so brutal. But yeah, After Effects didn't have cameras, and no brand previews. So you'd have to, like you said, render it out.
You need to render a little screen and go for lunch. 3 hours lunch today.
Look at it.
Yeah.
I remember using Quantel EQ, and before that Henry. They didn't have any undo, so you're kind of screwed at all.
Yeah, we weren't even that classy. We had at Channel 6, we had a Dubner paint box, which was like
paint box.
And it was, you had 2 layers. You had the on air and off air. So if you made a mistake, you'd flip the layers, flip it back.
One thing that did those kind of situations do teach, I do think is important, like designing within restraints. Like I think you can make amazing work no matter what your scenario is, as long as you understand your ability and understand design. It doesn't matter if you're working on like a 486 or whatever. You can still do good stuff. It's what your design solution is. And I think this probably links back to what we was talking about earlier about budgets in a way. If you're pragmatic, you can think of a solution within the budget.
I think limitations are so helpful, to have like some area to play in, like this has got to be black and white. Boom. My problem was always like, if I was doing something for like, ESPN, I'd want to do something with like flourishes and something that was soft and beautiful. I don't know why. It would drive me nuts. We'd be working on something for like TLC, and I'm in there like, gritty and like, brick wall, and it's like, no, like I just always want to do the opposite of whatever it was I should be doing, and it's too much time.
That's just a rebel in you. That's what it is.
Yeah, I guess. Just being a knucklehead.
Yeah, it's always hard to find the balance as well, I think running a company, better than that, but we always want to do a lot more than the budgets can give to us.
Shall we ask a question from YouTube?
Yeah.
A lady called Louise Grosjean says, what has been your favorite project you've ever worked on?
Man, my favorite. I would say we did this Converse piece. It was actually back at Nailgun, and shot it here in my apartment. The red camera had just come out. So a friend of mine had bought it, and so we worked with him using that, and it was a piece I directed, and we worked on it internally as like a side thing, and that we end up, after we're done, end up, being something that we kind of worked with Converse on. But we shot that and did all the animations for. We designed all the characters from scratch. We hadn't really done any 3D character work as a company.
Is this a tracking project? We tracked all the stuff in like the streets of New York. Is that the one?
Yeah. So that's probably my fun, because it was just something that it was just a passion project, and it was so many people. We had interns kind of coming in and out working on it. We had, freelancers that would help out on things, and it just took about a year to get done. But it was a real fun project, and I was glad to finally get it completed. I'd say nowadays, I'd say the most recent one is usually the one that you're happiest with. I mean, we have KCA every year, and every year I think the team crushes it. And there's so many pieces to it. There's the environment, there's the after party that we design all of that. We design the show, we design the promos. We go and we shoot, we fly to whatever city, whether it's DJ Khaled in Miami or Chance the Rapper back in Chicago.
DJ Khaled. A lot of work. I just want to shout, we make the best music.
Oh man, I got stories. The person who never looks up from their phone ever. But it, those are a lot of fun. Every year I'm like, oh man, I don't know how we're gonna, beat this one, and then the team comes up and we work on it. We spend about a year on the whole project. It starts usually before we finish the last one. And every year the team just crushes it. And so that's usually like my favorite time of year, is really working on the Kids' Choice Awards stuff. It's really a lot of fun.
I remember seeing the Converse project when it came out, so I think it was posted on quite a few blogs. And back then, like seeing 3D tracked into live action was quite a new thing.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh man, we can do like Roger Rabbit next level now.
Yeah. We also like the girl that we cast, and that I was a friend of a friend, and she had this amazing sort of big hair, and I was like, I loved it, and you've been on a set so many times. It's like, hey, pull the hair back. It's over green screen. We got to key it. Let's make our life easy. And I just shot it all, with her hair out. And so when I got back, and the team was like ready to kill me, because they're like, we got to all this hair, and I'm like, yes, that's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I promise you. So yeah, that took a while. It was a big rotoscoping job.
Hannah is asking, any advice on building a graduate portfolio?
Graduate portfolio. Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it simple. And, the one thing I see a lot is, a person graduates and they try to put all the work that they've done, because they don't have a career yet. They haven't started their career. So they try to show as much stuff. And my feedback is always is less is more. You don't have to show everything. I don't need to see sophomore stuff. I would say, less is more. Show the work that you're proud of, because what happens when we start seeing that work, you go, okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. Oof, that's not so good. You get nervous. You go, oh, is that the standard? And these are just luck, or what? So it's a little bit tough to gauge. So my whole thing would be like, pick the best work, pick the work that you want to do when you get out. Like, show that kind of work, because if not, you're gonna get stuck in a job where you're just doing, whatever they need. And then the other thing I would say is I'd create like another page, another section, and I would have a process, area, like, what are the storyboards? Like, what's the writing behind it? What's the story? Like, what about the sketches? Where are some of like the renders and process? Like, you went
a bit of process.
The process. I'm a big process guy. Big process. So to me, the finished work is nice, but what I love and I want to see is that work behind it. Because what I don't want is to see something that's really nice that just happened to be a piece that you copied, that somebody did from other country, and they did all the hard work, and you're just a technician and you get it done. So I want to see, I want to see the sketchbook. That's kind of the old school part of me. I want to see the sketchbook, and I want to see how you got there, and that's going to make me want to hire you way more than just seeing the final product.
I feel like the ideas are king. So if you can show your idea process, like sometimes the execution might not be great, but then at the end of the day, if you're hiring someone as a junior position, for example, like a graduate, then that's something you can shape and something you can mold. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
We've also been in 1,000 pitch meetings where you show the boards, and the room is like crickets, and you can tell like none of this stuck. So what do? Do you walk out and go home and say, I just wasted a week on this job? Or do you go like, you know what, this is other idea we were kicking around. Hey, what about this? And then now you're having a conversation, you're pitching on your feet, and you're like, maybe you grab a pencil and you're like sketching something out, and you see that they're vibing with it, and it becomes like a working session. So that's when you get to a certain level, it's even more important to be able to sell stuff, like you were saying earlier, like to sell to your team, to sell to your client, to whoever. it's less about being in front of the computer, and so it's less about being, on the box, and it's more about, inspiring other people, connecting, selling an idea through, and that's important. That's just as important. So if you have already done that work, when you're younger and you're starting out, it's the same thing. It's just you're saying it versus doing it. But if you haven't done that work and you're in that room, you're going to be sitting there like, a deer in headlights and going like, okay, I'm going to go home and take this out.
Yeah, I see quite a lot of problem nowadays with a lot of young generation, people trying to join, our field there is so many like technical courses, like After Effects, animation courses online nowadays, but like some courses is a little bit more in depth where you learn design, you learn everything. Like, I think that's what I'm a person, I'm not against university, but I think you had that time to learn and what you're talking about the process, about the idea behind. And nowadays, every time we try and hire people, we see so many people coming with a showreel. You can see it's kind of a technical showreel. It's not a problem if you want to be a technical, but if you want to be a creative, if you want to be a creative, and the person is not really a designer or is not really an animator, he just know how to use After Effects or 3D, but you need to be on top. So I start having a lot of problem trying to hire people nowadays, because people, it's like what James is saying, if you have the ideas, if the tools we can shape, we can teach easily, but teach people how to create ideas and things like that is a lot more work.
You can't teach good ideas, I don't think.
And the funny you should bring that up, because when I was teaching at Parsons, the first 14, 15 years was in the grad program. My class was all about storyboarding, concepts, ideation, all of that. And then they took that work and they went to another class. That was a technical class, that was just where they did all the After Effects or whatever they were doing. And then they got rid of motion graphics in the grad program, and then they only had an undergrad. So they're like, hey, we really want you to teach this class. It's motion graphics 1. I'm like, well, isn't that like an After Effects class? And they're like, yeah. Like, well, first off, I was like, I can teach a motion graphics After Effects 1. It's easy, but I was like, I don't really want to waste my time when they can go on to lynda.com, they can go on YouTube, silly. But I was like, if I can teach this class where it's really more about, the design and the process of it, and then I can help them with some of the, some of the aspects things, then I'm down. And I did that for 3 years, and it was a lot of fun. But it would have been miserable if I was just in there going like, hey, here's a keyframe. This is what a keyframe does. Like, there was some of that, but like, I was like, it's way more important for me to sort of teach them how to think versus just how to move the computer around.
Did any of their like responses to the briefs that you gave them, did any of them like surprise you, like, damn, that's a damn good idea, kind of like really, really kind of out there or what have you?
Yeah, that was last year's Nickelodeon holiday video.
Exactly. Yeah, there was always somebody. There was always two things that would happen. One is that kind of thing would somebody come in, with some work that was just like, man, this is so good. And then the other thing that would surprise me was that there would always be somebody struggling through the year, and then they get to that last like month, and then all of a sudden it would just click. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this person's not going to pass the class, or they're just struggling. It's just really been hard, and then they kind of come in and crush it at the end. So that's the part that was always fun, because there's always somebody that you're just like, man, I don't want to fail somebody, but then they come in and surprise you.
That's that's probably the most satisfying part of teaching, is when you make that kind of impact where they just get it at the end.
Yeah,
it's like a Rocky film, isn't it? They've just done a montage and then there's the final fight.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. They just see like struggle, catching punches, and at the very end they win the fight. You're like, my job's done. I'm out.
There's a good follow-up question from what Thiago asked earlier, from Rainer's question from Nick Milligan, who says, would you have any advice for someone who feels pigeonholed in a specific type of work, who wants to change things up?
Yeah, I think the advice would be to, obviously get out of that job as quickly as possible. But I think it's really about finding time for yourself to be able to try those other things that you want to do. And a lot of times, it's if you're just feeling like pigeonholed at the job because your boss only sees you as one way, it goes back to the motion piece, the exquisite corpse I talked about earlier. Like our group was pigeonholed as like, they're not that great. So we had to do something to make that happen. And, even for me in COVID being sort of locked down, many nights, even while I'm on email at work, I would, be learning how to use the drone, learning how to use, LumaFusion on my iPad. You have to take that time out for yourself, and you have to dedicate, that time to try something new and to learn new things. Because if you can't, like, nobody's going to let you. The thing I see a lot is people think that they're going to go somewhere and they're going to learn that on somebody else's dime. We talked about that earlier, like, because you get a job and that's where you can learn. But they're usually hiring you to do a job, and they're not looking to hire you to do that job and to learn to do a bunch of other things. So you really have to find your time, and it's easier now than it's ever been, because there's so much information out there. I mean, I'm on YouTube all the time now, because I'm like, I'm using, like, I have a Weeble crane that I use with my Sony, A7 III. And I've never had a crane before. I've always just hired Steadicam operators, so now I'm like having to learn how to do it, and it's not very easy to learn. I've been like in a Mac, Apple, Adobe world my whole life. And so when you start stepping out of that, it's like, wow, this thing doesn't work the way it should work all the time. I have to reboot it and does this, and and it just,
I have to kick it here.
Yeah. I mean, it was like when I learned Maya way back in the day, I was like, man, it's just not where I think it should be. It's like you have to, like, left click this with your, right arm over your left arm, and then you got to look the other way, and that's how you get to the thing that's drop down menu. Drove me nuts, So
yeah, that was painful.
Yeah, it was a hard one. So yeah, I just say, like, you gotta take that time out. Even if you have a family, you gotta, like, give yourself a couple of hours a week, if not more, and just learn it, and then take that and use that as another piece of your game.
Yeah, it's good. So we've been just an hour and 23. Should we pick last questions so we can let you go free as well?
Do you want to pick the last one?
We have one more question on the YouTube here, Edu Iscanho. He asked, what's your advice to avoid burnouts in a creative environment?
Yeah, I need to ask myself that question. It's a tough one. I mean, I think the best advice is I think it's stepping away. I think the one thing I've sort of found was I was sort of locked into my career for so long, and I think somebody asked earlier about just what do I do on the side for fun, and I think that like even travel, going different countries, being lucky enough to do that, to be able to go there and sort of see how they handle design, how they handle architecture, going to their museums, going into the woods. Like, I think all that kind of stuff it sparks something in you. And the less you're at a desk, and it's never been more real than right now. Like, I'm at a desk like 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and it drives me nuts. It's just to get out and experience the world. I'm lucky. I live in New York City. You walk out every day, I see something new. I've been here for 20 years. You see some of the craziest shit. You see some of the coolest stuff.
Especially on the subway, man.
The subway, on top of the subway. It's you name it. Backup cars. So I think the best thing for burnout is just putting it away. You got to put it away and do something else. Because what happens is that while you're doing something else, subconsciously it's always there. And I know we've all heard it many times. Your best ideas are in the shower. Your best ideas are when you're driving a car. It's because you're not trying to come up with ideas, and your brain's working in a different way. So I think getting out and experiencing more things is the best way, because then you come back to it and you want to be there, And I found myself for a long time, especially with a company, where I would work on weekends because I didn't have time on the weekdays to do it. So I would do it on the weekends, and then you never have a break. And no matter what you do in life, like, the best job in the world becomes a job when you do it too much. So it's key to step away and see the world a little bit.
Yeah, you need that downtime to recharge. I think, like you say, it's incredibly important, especially, if you live near, I think we're quite blessed in the UK and Europe, because we've got a lot of different countries on our doorstep. You can take like an hour flight and go to the majority of Europe, kind of thing.
Totally.
And it's amazing. Yeah, take advantage of that.
Yeah, sure.
It's really help, and I think sometimes we just focus too much on the work. I think a pitch is always a good opportunity to try explain try new things, like just out of your comfortable zone as well. That helps quite, just let things go and say, let me try, if you get the job, you get the job, but you just to try and do new things,
A little bit of fear goes a long way. Once you're stepping out of your comfort zone, you feel that fear, it's real. And you'll quit thinking about burnout. You'll start worrying about survival. And that's a whole different kind of work.
But more about burn rate.
But it's like he said, going to museum and things like that. Before COVID, we used to go every end of the month. I used to take everyone in the studio. We used to go like for lunch, and then we go or to a different museum or to a different exhibition, just to get like everyone to look complete out of the computer, look how art is done in different perspective as well, because it's just like a nice environment and relax as well. And you're still absorbing, like work-wise. But I think that helps quite a lot, the guys in the studio, just to take the pressure out.
With the week before COVID shutdown, we finally, I've been trying for 5 years to make this happen in it, but we finally had a big snowboard outing with a lot of people from our team. And it was just great. It was just so much fun. Nobody was the boss. Everybody was just, if they couldn't snowboard, they were drinking, hanging out, and we just hung out, had a really good time. The weather was perfect. It was spectacular, but it was really like a nice sort of reset, and to see people in different lights and then to see me in different light was really a lot of fun. I'd love to do it again.
Back in Brazil, that is back in '99, we used to play a Unreal tournament, and the whole company, the owner of the studio and everyone else, and like every Friday we play for a few hours, and everyone just shoot the boss. So it was a quite good way to relax as well. He used to shout from his room, offering a pay rise for who killed his knife that was killing him.
That's awesome.
That helps as well. Cool. So should we wrap up?
Yeah, I think we should just be an hour and a half.
An hour and a half.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, thanks so much, man. It's really a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for sharing, all this experience you have on this year and from the both side. I think was quite a lot good for people to hear.
A lot of scope.
So,
Insight.
Hopefully one of these days soon I can make it out your way, and we can do it again in person. But
that'll be good.
Might be a little bit of time in between now.
Fingers crossed. 2021 will be a bit more hugs, unless
a little more hugs, a little less death.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining in.
Guys, we have our last show of the year, 2 weeks time. 15th, and we're gonna have a break until next year for a month. We have things to sort out. So
probably back at the start of February.
Yeah, I think we need to put a website up. We've been talking about for so long, and I think it's been we have the website and we didn't have time to work on that. There is few good things coming. I hope next year is going to be a little bit more.
Maybe we'll even have the live show next year at some point.
Yeah. Who knows?
Anyway, so join us on the 15th. Thank you for joining us today.